Hi, my name is Zach Galifianakis, and this is...
I'm BeiBei Song, and I have been asked to interview Stanford GSB alumni who are now occupants of the executive C-suite about how they got in there, what they do there, and maybe some secrets for you to get there too one day, if you can bear watching till the end. My first guest is a COO of a funny company, which sometimes is also a funeral home. His name is, your name is Mitchell Gallbladder?
Right, or Galbraith.
Galbraith.
Yes.
Galbraith. Mitchell Galbraith.
That's me. Mitch, usually.
Mitch. Thank you, Mitch, for coming back to school today.
I'm excited to be here. It's nice to see the awesome new campus.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I've visited your website, your company website.
Excellent, thank you.
It's kind of funny.
It's supposed to be.
I'd say from funny or die, I'd say it's about here.
Yeah.
I have to say, I can't stand this guy, Zach
Galifianakis. It's a mouthful. Yeah.
Galifianakis. I'm pretty bad at names, as you probably have
Well, it's not an easy
noticed. I practiced it for 37 times, still can't get it. So I'm going to just call him Galifianakis.
Sure, good.
All right.
I noticed we had ferns, so I thought...
Palms, we're in school, we're
Right,
in
palms,
Stanford.
that's-
These are palms. Palms beat ferns.
That's right.
Galifianakis. He's so mean to all the celebrities. I won't do that to you.
Good.
You are a COO
Yeah.
of a comedy channel. Does that mean that you're the most boring person in the company?
I am probably
I mean,
one of
the
the least funny.
smartest, but the boringest.
I do the decidedly unfunny things in the company. That's true.
How did you become a CEO there anyhow? I mean, how did you hook up with them? I analyzed your credentials, your resume,
Yeah.
and I was, first of all, very glad to see that there's actually someone with a longer collection of shorter tenures than I do. I've never had a serious job more than 3 years, but you've got 9 months here, 7 months there, 11 months there.
Yeah.
So the only theme I was able to gather is alcohol and celebrities, and then if only you could be funny.
Right. You hit most of the high points,
So-
or low points, depending on perspective.
But you did seem to behave for a while, working at Yahoo for about 5 some years.
Yeah, 5.5
right after
years.
school.
Yep.
So what exactly did they see in you? How did you end up to be a COO?
Yep. Yahoo's a good starting point right after business school. So I ended up as an individual contributor in the business development team at Yahoo, which was very close to the revenue part of the business, which I think is an important attribute of building towards a COO career, is being close to revenue. I think many of the COOs that I know came through a path that involved sales or business development, or in general being very close to how revenue is produced.
Oh, it's not just operations.
Often not. Yeah, I think often the most common paths, I would say, are people that come through the money-making part of the business or the financial side of the business. Are probably the two most common paths I see into COO. But at any rate, my role at Yahoo started off in business development, and then over the 5.5 years that I was there, grew into a role that was almost like the precursor of a COO role in a business unit at Yahoo, of which there were many at the time. The GM of the business unit would operate a bit like the CEO of a company, just this little contained unit within Yahoo. And the head of business operations, which is my ultimate role, was a bit like a COO. It was sort of a grab bag of financial planning and analysis, business development, strategic planning. I owned a small P&L within the business unit and oversaw all of our call center operations. So I had my hands, if you will, in a number of different aspects of the business, which gave me a broad purview, access to the executive suite. And so I think that was, that role in particular was the one that sort of led me into the sort of COO path.
Did you know that you wanted to be a COO? Was it like, I'm going to be a COO one day, and to do that, in order to get there, I need to do this and I need to do that, and you became COO? Or was it more like, oh, I feel like doing this, I feel like doing that, and oh, I'm a COO today now?
No, no, definitely it wasn't, nearly as premeditated as that. It would give me way too much credit. And like most MBAs, my goal, I was definitely aiming towards CEO, top dog. In fact, I held a CEO position before I ever became a COO. I've been a CEO twice and a COO twice. And actually, if I'm being honest with myself, I prefer the COO role. I was aiming towards being a CEO. And then just over the course of my career, as I think happens for most people, you just go on this sort of journey of self-discovery, and you sort of figure out what your talents are and what you're interested in and where you fit in the world. And for me, I think COO is the answer to a lot of those questions.
Interesting.
It's a role that varies pretty dramatically from company to company, and it can vary based on the stage of the company, or just the executives involved, or the sector of the business. And for the viewers, the vast majority of my career has been in consumer internet post-business school, so sort of modern history, all consumer internet, and after the nearly 6 years at Yahoo has all been startups, so sub 100 employees, sub 100 million in revenue kind of businesses, so just to sort of set the general stage for the type of operating environment.
Okay.
So at Funny or Die, where I currently am the COO, our CEO has been responsible for financing, managing the board of directors, charting the general strategic course for the company, sort of high-level resource allocation, bringing in key talent and key partnerships. And I'd say that's sort of the core of what he does. And my role is more about how we execute on the day-to-day stuff. So a lot of what I do is how we get from point A to point B. As an executive staff and with the board, we're determining where we want to be with our business. And my role is to know what it takes within our organization to get from point A to point B, in particular when the path between the two is in a straight line. Sort of knowing the people and the partners and the nitty-gritty of the operations of the company to get things done. So I'm much more down in the weeds, I think you could say, in the company.
All right, so we'll talk about the specifics in the weed. We'll
Yes.
take a closer look.
So to
at
break it down from like an organizational chart perspective, so I report to our CEO.
Yes.
Everything that has to do with finance and accounting reports to me. Sales and marketing report to me. Business development, product engineering, and some of our digital programming. And in our company, we have a Southern California operation that's very oriented towards content creation, and then the office that I sit in Silicon Valley is more about finance and accounting and product and engineering and some of the more sort of tech or web things. And so I oversee all of those operations in Northern California, and then all those different groups that I mentioned, and then everything that has to do with content creation. And celebrities and TV and movies, because we're a production studio that makes content not just for the web, but for TV and movies too. So all of that reports up into Dick, who's our CEO.
By the way, so the company was started by this kid who wants to be a comedian, correct?
Yeah, the founding team was, it was literally, there's a lot of mythology around founding stories. Funny or Die's is genuine. It was basically Mark Kwame, who is one of the partners at Sequoia Capital, his son, who was about 17 at the time, Michael, had the idea of a place to be seen for celebrity comedians, like sort of like a YouTube sort of environment, but more befitting of celebrity quality. And creating a place.
Isn't it nice if you want to be a comedian to have a rich VC dad?
For sure. It's a good gig.
You can just play wanting to be a comedian, and then your dad can hire a bunch of business people and try to make a business out of it.
That's probably not how he thinks of it, but yeah.
But you guys need to figure out how to make money, and then Dick sets the strategic tone, and then you execute on.
Go out and make it so, as they say in Star Trek.
As a startup, you probably have limited resources. So how do you prioritize, or how do you balance? How do you?
Yeah. Yep. We do sort of a combination of a top-down and a bottom-up sort of planning process at Funny or Die, which I don't think is uncommon. So at the board and C-suite level, we will sort of chart a plan for Funny or Die, and then that cascades down from the C-level folks, to the department heads, down to everybody in the company, sort of building goals and objectives that are sort of aligned with those high-level, broad-stroke goals. But oftentimes what's happening, down in the trenches of the company also makes its way up and informs those high-level goals a lot of the time too, where we'll find opportunities or projects that well up from the team that become priorities. And I'll provide an example. We did digital movies, so not something that we were producing for theaters or for traditional film distribution. It was a project that a writer and a producer on our team down in LA came up with on their own. The whole project was maybe $40,000 or $50,000 budget, so very small and it was a feature-length film called I, Steve, and it's a fake biopic, of Steve Jobs.
Okay.
And the whole joke was Ashton Kutcher has a movie called Jobs. It's coming out in August. Aaron Sorkin has been rumored to be, creating a film about Steve Jobs, and so the joke was that we were going to be the first to come out with a biopic about Steve Jobs, but that in our rush to produce it, it's factually inaccurate and horribly produced. That's part of the joke. And it started off as like, oh, maybe we'll just do like a trailer. And then they actually made a 78-minute movie out of it. And it turned out to be actually pretty good. So that was an example of a project that we hadn't planned to do that. It wasn't, like from the top board level, like, hey, we're going to make a biopic about Steve Jobs. But it was a project that welled up from the team that turned into a priority, and we distributed it on Hulu, and it was the #1 movie on Hulu in the month of May for Hulu Plus. And it's likely to be on TV via our partner Turner sometime over the late summer or early fall. So, it was something that became much bigger than we were expecting.
All right. So if someone wants to be a COO, what would you say are the essential qualifications for a COO at any kind of company?
Yep. Let me start by saying why you should want to be a COO versus a CEO.
Okay.
And then I'll answer that because I think it helps to inform the answer to the second question is why. The why be a COO, because it's, for me, it has a lot to do with I relish my individual contributor roles. I'd like to be in the details, working with the team hand in hand to make things happen. And that means, like when I was a CEO, I struggled a bit with the sort of delegation required. I wanted to have my hands in too many of the projects, and I constantly had to work to pull myself back to give yourself the time as you needed as a CEO to think, to be strategic, to build relationships, to invest in things that maybe don't have an immediate ROI. So a lot of the things that people see CEOs do, like speak on panels, or go to trade events. It looks like, to the untrained eye might look like a boondoggle, but I really do think there's value as a CEO of like wrapping your head around what's happening in your industry, building relationships, thinking strategically, just literally having the time to not be down in the weeds, the analogy of, see the forest for the trees. If you're in the forest, it can be hard to, see the overall strategic picture. And I think there's real value for the CEO to take the time to do that. Of those two, I tend towards the more tactical.
So that's the self-discovery that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, having been through both roles, when I was a CEO, I was constantly fighting my nature to do what I thought was the right thing as a CEO, and I kept wanting to basically be a COO, to coin a phrase.
Now coming back to the qualifications.
I think some of the important qualifications. One is you need to be multifaceted, because I think by definition a COO role is cross-functional. So you need to be able to work across, in my organization, marketing and business development and sales and product and engineering. So I think, if you're building yourself towards being a COO, and the nice thing is it's similar to the path, I think, to developing your skills to be a CEO, is you need to become multifaceted. As I said earlier, I think sticking close to revenue and, so roles that have you closely tied to how the company makes money is a great way to do it. But that role at Yahoo for me, where I added, in addition to business development and sales, financial planning and analysis, and I had call center operations and an advertising P&L. The broadening of the scope of my role was helpful. I became an expert in how things happen in our business unit, sort of across functions, and I think that's an important distinction between like a VP of in a startup, a VP of whatever function, which tends to have a little bit more of a myopic view of, so I know how things happen in my department. I know what my priorities and objectives are, and often obviously know how those fit into the broader company. But the distinction between a COO and a really talented VP is that cross-functional purview. I think the detail orientation as a qualification, you need to be the sort of person that is rigorous and meticulous and detail-oriented with great follow-through, and have the patience and the perseverance or dogged, the sort of that determination it takes to, as I've been saying, get from point A to point B.
Okay, so for the multifaceted, do you advise someone to do it horizontally or vertically? By that I mean, should someone take on something that is well-rounded, but perhaps a smaller company, and then grow bigger that way? Or would it be better for someone to do financial planning first, to acquire these different verticals of functional expertise?
That's a great question. I don't have a great answer. I mean, I know how it worked for me, and I've seen it work in different ways for different people. I do think, and it's sort of the art of knowing, sort of how to manage your career. For me, I started off building an expertise in business development and sales, sort of closely tied to revenue, and then found the right opportunity to, broaden my scope. But I've certainly seen people that started off in roles, less of a functional expertise, and started off in a role that had a bit of a broader purview. People take, like not so much in startups, but chief of staff roles as junior executive. Earlier in your career, you can take on roles like that where you get to see a lot in a company. Corp dev role is a good example in some of the bigger companies I work for. Corp dev folks, you can be relatively junior, but still get involved in a lot of different business units, see a lot of different stuff, and those can sometimes be good roles to develop sort of the broad skill set it takes to be a GM or a COO.
You still have quite a bit of career left. How do you design your career and life? And do you just go by, I'm going to be a COO, I'm going to be bigger and whatever, or is it something else? If you design it,
Yep.
If you don't, what do you go by?
You're right. That's what I was going to say. Is sort of the same answer to how I got here in the first place, which is, for me, I'm focused much more on. I like to work with people that I respect and like. I like to work on projects that I find enjoyable, just like intrinsically enjoyable. I like to feel like I'm doing a good job and that I'm valued. And if I have those three things, the rest of it, I'm much less worried about. So, I don't have specific goals with regard to title or type of company. I'm sort of more, so like where I am now, I'm incredibly happy. And I feel like I'm 42. I'm at a point in my career where I'm a little more focused on having fun and being happy than maybe I was, 10 years ago when I was, thinking much more ambitiously and, I'll suffer through anything if I can advance my career. And now I have kids, so I'm, being happy is an important part of my criteria. But I still feel very ambitious about my career. I still want to take it to new heights. But I think it'll be a little bit more of a journey of discovery. I'll be following those three basic criteria and seeing where it takes me.
Okay. All right. Are you thirsty?
I am. Take a sip.
You're not getting your beer.
Oh, I'm already drunk.
All right.
So
To your next whatever adventure.
Thank you.
Funny or Die, or whatever other
new heights. I ascend to.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you for watching. If you're still here, come back to see my next guest, who is even less funny, but knows how to expand a yummy business and sell it big.
Hi, my name is
Galifianakis.
and this is another edition of Between Two Ferns.